Dan Crenshaw has started up a new feud. No, it is not with Hassan or with Pete Davidson. In this case, it is with Marjorie Greene. It is over their different approach to how the federal government should deal with rising COVID cases. And it apparently came about as a result of something Dan Crenshaw said on Fox and Friends. If you didn't catch that original clip late last week, here it is.
The reality is Congress has already appropriated tens of billions of dollars to this specific problem. Right now, it's a management problem. It's the executive branch is not executing these dollars in an efficient manner. That's what's going on. And again, look, I'm a conservative. I always make sure people know there is only so much government can do. And the moment that it starts doing more than it should be doing, you start to see unintended second and third order consequences that harm everybody worse than you wanted to. So what the federal government should be doing, again, using their FEMA resources to bolster a lot of these testing sites, open up new testing sites. This is what we saw happen under the Trump administration. They should be using our resources to increase those supply chains to get those monoclonal antibodies out to people faster. And President Biden announced this, we just haven't seen results from it, helping us get more healthcare workers, either from the military or from FEMA.
Okay, so while I don't generally consider Dan Crenshaw to be an awesome member of Congress, or even necessarily a reasonable guy on a lot of topics, what he said there, while not going nearly as far in terms of what role he thinks the federal government should have in dealing with this pandemic and trying to limit how many people end up getting sick and hospitalized and end up dying from this, virtually everything he did advocate for not only seems fairly reasonable and obvious, but also consistent with most conservatives' stated goals in this pandemic. He made sure that much of what he said that he thinks FEMA should do is what it was doing under former President Donald Trump. And I understand the tactic there of trying to get conservatives to accept something because he's tying it to Trump, but understand that Trump himself didn't seem to be in support of much of what the federal government was doing last year, or I should say now 2 years ago when it comes to the pandemic. But that said, he's not saying they should be going around forcibly injecting people with vaccine. He's saying, let's make sure that testing sites are available. And we understand that in red states, there's a lot of difficulty in getting tests right now. There's long lines, difficulty getting an appointment. He even made a lot of it about distributing antibodies. That's one of the things conservatives have been saying they support for a long time. Governor Abbott of Texas, DeSantis, they talk about this constantly. But that said, despite the fact that everything he just said there seems reasonable from a right-wing point of view, Marjorie Greene represents the inherently unreasonable part of the Republican Party, or what I would now call the Republican Party. And so she has to oppose this, and indeed did. So she responded to Dan Crenshaw there saying, no, FEMA should not set up testing sites to check for Omicron sneezes, coughs, and runny noses. And we don't need FEMA in hospitals. They should hire back all the unvaccinated healthcare workers they fired. He needs to stop calling himself conservative. He's hurting our brand. So I don't know what he said there makes him not a conservative. Nothing he said there was progressive. He even did his little thing about, I think the government has a role, but at a certain point, if they do more than that, it's gonna have second and third order effects and all that. And here's the thing, everybody can draw a line beyond which government action would not be helpful. It is all about where you draw that line. He thinks he's differentiating himself from Democrats, but what he doesn't seem to get is increasingly inside of his own party, that's not where the lines need to be drawn. It's between himself and people like Marjorie Greene, who believe in topics like this having to do with public health that the government has no role. That does not mean that she doesn't want the government to get involved in picking and winners and losers in some things, like in the economy and all that. But in this, she doesn't want anything. And if that means that she has to destroy him to make that be the dominant narrative in the party, she will. She even says there, he's hurting our brand. She's saying, I am what conservatism is, not you, Dan Crenshaw. And the thing is, that is a debate that is being had inside of the party, nationally, socially, and culturally in America. Who better represents conservatism? And electorally, it ain't looking good for the Dan Crenshaw people. But that said, he did respond to Marjorie Greene saying on Instagram, Hey, Marjorie, if suggesting we should follow Trump policy instead of Biden mandates makes you mad, then you might be a Democrat or just an idiot. Well, she's not a Democrat, so you do the math, I guess. Now, of course, he's criticizing Greene, clearly. He's also criticizing Democrats and criticizing Biden. And as always, as they've been doing for literally months, pretending that the Biden administration vaccine mandate is something that it is not. As we've said many times, it is now less stringent than Fox News's own mandate. But he has to use it as a bludgeon against her. And as of right now, I don't know that she has responded to what he said on Instagram, because she can't tweet about it because she's been banned on Twitter. And isn't that an interesting thing to be able to say? But the fight will continue. Now, she did go after him a couple of days ago on a different venue. So this is on Getter, which I'm never gonna directly see because I'm a rational human. Why would I be on that platform? But she did say, Dan Crenshaw, who spends more time attacking America First Republicans because he not so secretly hates Trump, is talking about a bill to hold big tech accountable, but is the same type of toothless bill the Paul Ryan types try to sell to make it look like they're doing something. And so, look, I don't even necessarily disagree with her there, in that Dan Crenshaw, like many Republicans, holds up this boogeyman of big tech being unfair to conservatives and mean and all that, when it's the exact opposite of reality, and doesn't reflect his actual view of these tech corporations or their CEOs, or at the very least, their campaign donations, because they will often criticize these corporations, but then they take their money and they're not really trying to do anything legislatively to stop them. Now, she is differentiating herself. She is saying, she's identifying what we're identifying, but saying that she's different. But I would ask you, in what way? What is she doing in terms of legislation? I understand she has limited ability to pass legislation. Obviously, she's literally not even in any committees. But what is she proposing? Does anyone know? Like, again, if you were gonna try to pitch yourself as a better, pure version of whatever right-wing conservatism is supposed to be right now, at some point, it kind of needs to have some substance. It needs to manifest in legislation. At the very least, if you're gonna claim that the issue with them is that they're not passing anything, and yet she's not really trying to. Okay, so finally, it looks like he responded to that saying, some of us in Congress actually put in the hard work to fix social media political censorship, doing the in-depth policy and legal research required to craft good legislation. Others just hurl petty insults to get your attention and then tell you they fight for you. Starting to notice the difference? Now, that is true. And that's true of politicians on both sides of the aisle. It's a little bit undercut as a point when he just called her an idiot on Instagram like a few minutes ago. But anyway, look, it's the sort of fight between Crenshaw and Greene that most people watching this show are probably going to enjoy, get some schadenfreude from. They're both bad people in different ways, fighting it out. But that said, it is a consequential fight, because while a Republican Party that is sort of renewed in being full of people like a Dan Crenshaw is not a good Republican Party, it has no interest in fixing the systemic problems that face America, it still seems better than the Greene one. So the stakes in that fight do matter for people outside of the Republican Party as well.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.